So hey guys, I am here today to put out the truth and to tell you my honest opinion, how I feel, and what has actually gone on with the Freedom Fighter 200 EFI 2024, right? So if you guys haven't watched my shorts, I took delivery on the bike, I think last Friday. Yeah, it was last Friday. Today's now Tuesday. And I was super excited, right? My intentions for this motorcycle was to purchase it, ride it, have a good, cheap commuter that get good in gas mileage, and really kind of just made the cut for a kind of market that we don't have in the United States. I was excited to ride it, review it, and just have a great time on it, right? You guys know me, I ride a lot of bikes. 95% of the time I'm riding with a camera and I just kind of record what's going on. If anything cool happens, I post it. And so when I noticed that this bike, kind of a bike that we don't really have here in America, a small CC bike that would actually, you know, take you on highway speeds, I was all for it. I was excited for the release probably 6 months before it even came out. I was just so hyped. I saw the post on the Grom pages and I was ready to go scoop me one. Like, and then I forgot about it. Let's be honest, I forgot that they were releasing this bike. So literally on Super Bowl Sunday, I made a Facebook post in the Freedom Fighter enthusiast group, said, hey, can't get a hold of any dealers who has a Freedom Fighter. I want to purchase one. And long story short, I talked to the dealer for about, I don't know, 30 minutes, and I sent him the wire transfer for the bike. This was super exciting for me because, you know, the dealer had great reviews from a lot of people, and I was just excited for the bike, right? Well, the bike comes in, I do the short of the bike coming off the lift, and I unbox it, get it out of its little cage, and that was pretty much it. Well, unfortunately for me, I go to put gas in it, I hook the battery up, and everything turns on. It has a beautiful LCD screen, it has, you know, the charging ports, and it has the backlit controls, and it just has a bunch of neat features that I thought was really cool. Granted, I kind of think they're unnecessary, but I thought they were cool. And I put gas in the bike. I go to prime the bike to, you know, turn on the start switch, and gas is just pouring everywhere, right? So I, you know, get the camera, I get up under there, and I can see that there's just gas shooting out of the side of the fuel line. So I reach out to the dealer, like, hey, I'm leaking gas literally everywhere. And he puts me in a group chat with the CEO of Freedom Scooters, which the company that makes the Freedom Fighter is Freedom Scooters. And from there, you know, we deal with it. I tell him, like, hey, I'm gonna go to to O'Reilly's. I'm going to try to build a new fuel line, and I'm going to build it, you know, with the same length, with probably better hosing and fuel injected clamps. So that's what I did. Went to O'Reilly's, got it built, installed it on the bike. The thing is for me to install that fuel line on the motorcycle, I had to really take off pretty much the whole left side plastic so I could fit my hand under there to push the connector to get it off the fuel pump. And when doing so, I took off the little, it's like a wheelie bar, like little seat holder thing on the back. And when I pulled it off, I noticed that there was like a lot of grease on the threads of the bolts. And I thought that was weird, but they were really hard to take off, so I didn't really understand what was going on. Well, when I was removing them, I took them out and I looked at them, and I could see that the threads it was tightened down so much that the threads were starting to round off. So at that point I messaged the dealer like, hey, these threads are messed up, and here's a picture of the threads right here so you guys can kind of see what I was looking at. And so I sent him a picture of that, and at this point in time I hadn't put gas in it yet because I was still taking the bike apart, and I decided, like, okay, we're gonna actually put gas in it. As soon as I opened the fuel cap, I noticed like rust pitting on the inlet of the gas tank. So, you know, there's surface rust that happens, you know, in transportation stuff. So I was like, okay, this is fine. I looked at it. It wasn't very thick, but it definitely just had some surface rust on it. So I got my flashlight and looked inside the tank, and it looked like there was quite a bit of like fuel gunk slash rust slash not good stuff in the fuel tank. So I also sent it to the dealer, hey, there's rust inside this fuel tank. So within like the first day of me having it, like that Friday, I had already recognized that the bolts were rounded off in strips on the locations of the bike, and that there was rust in the fuel tank. So I was like already kind of not enjoying the fact that this brand new bike out of the crate was damaged and had issues that needed to be repaired. The gas tank issue, I think, was kind of it could have just been residual leftover gunky gas, which is okay. It can be, you know, it'll work itself out hopefully through riding the bike. So I had mentioned all this to the dealer, but the dealer, you know, had talked to the owner and said, hey, these are, allegedly he had talked to the owner and said, hey, these are some of the issues that this individual's having. And just so you guys know, the Freedom Fighter 200 EFI this is the first model year. So, you know, no bike is going to be perfect the first time it comes out, in my opinion. It takes companies, you know, iteration after iteration after iteration to get their bikes up to spec. And so, you know, to me, I'm just sitting here thinking like, oh, this is, you know, just things that happen with new motorcycles. Like it's a thing that is probably just a part of the learning curve. So I'm providing all this information to the dealer, and he had told the owner like, hey, you know, he had the fuel line issue. I don't know if he communicated the other issues that I had brought to him. That being said, I was like, okay, you know, like let's ride this fucking thing. So I go to ride the bike, and I notice right off the rip, as soon as I start taking off, that the shifter is really hard to shift, right? When I say really hard to shift, like the FZ is just like a little touch right there. I just shift it, right? If I want to go down, easy shift, it just moves, right? Just no issue shifting whatsoever. And that's how most of my motorcycles are. They just don't have any issue shifting. And so the shifting was hard. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep this to myself. I'm just going to go ride it. At this point in time, I'm like, okay, I start riding. I go to take like my first turn, and I realized I had a very, very, very soft front brake. So soft that all the way if I were to pull the handle all the way in, the bike would continue to roll, right? With all of my force and all of my might, if I pulled the bike, like the handle in all the way, I would keep rolling. So that was also like a giant red flag for me, right? Because that's like a really crucial part of the motorcycle to be able to ride daily. And at this point, I'm gonna give it full front brake here, all the way to the bar. No, it didn't. I should do a front flip. It won't go into gear. Go. Daily. And at this point in time, I'm thinking like, hey man, like I really like this thing. I really want, like, this is what, you know, I bought this thing to ride it. I was so excited. And so, you know, I'm just like, I really want to love this thing, but I'm having issues loving it, right? Because I'm running into the issue after issue after issue. And so I continue my ride, even with the weak front brake. And I was just, you know, putting some load on the bike. Load meaning like this, you know, just gunning the bike, right? Feeling what kind of power this new motor had, right? And I could hear under my left foot clicking and clacking. And I was like, what in the fuck is that, right? Kind of scared me, to be honest. And so I come to the conclusion once I got home that it was the chain was so loose with the rear tire being pushed so far forward that the sprocket was skipping teeth, which happens on mountain bikes all the time and stuff, and very rarely happens on motorcycles, but it is a possibility. Maybe just got to tighten it up a little bit. It's got everything on there. I definitely feel it right here at this peg. So it's probably just snapping over a tooth or two. And so I, you know, for me, I was like, okay, like that's an easy fix. I can adjust this. So that's what I did. I loosened up the rear axle, and I started messing with the adjusters. Then to come to find out, once I started messing with the right-hand adjuster, that the wheel was significantly further back. The right side where the caliper was significantly further back than the left side, which was all the way forward. So I wound up evening them out, putting them in the same location, and kind of tightening the chain just a smidge because it had, you know, quite a bit of slack in it. And that pretty much resolved the issue. I took it out for a little quick ride, didn't have any more skipping of tooths. And so one thing is I was in a parking lot getting ready to do the video to film the bike and launch my first video, right? I did this initial ride to say, hey, this is my initial ride. Let's do this, and let's, you know, start talking about this bike, and do the whole point of buying the bike was to make content for it. And I'm going through the parking lot, and I'm just holding constant throttle like I am now, and the engine's and it's sputtering and not misfiring, but it was sputtering and kind of having a hard issue, giving me like constant. Sorry guys, I just realized the 360 cut off. So back to what I was saying. The bike is sputtering and kind of not misfiring, but having an issue with the low speed throttle. It is sputtering pretty bad when you get back on the gas. Right there, that sputter. Pretty freaking bad. I wanted to kind of give this American company that kind of thought of, and as I got up to speed, it was performing perfectly. It didn't have any issues doing high speed, you know, constant throttle. It was really well. But going into the low speed kind of throttle, it was just sputtering really bad. So I finally wound up getting home. Like I said, I fixed the rear adjuster. I then decided, which I shouldn't have, to decide to bleed the front brake, thinking that there might have been some air in there in the factory and that I'd iron that out. So I wound up messaging the owner and saying, hey, the front brake is really weak. I really don't think that this is like a good brake. And that's when he informs me. He says, hey, if you want a better brake, it's going to be aftermarket. And I was like, you know, they should have adequate stopping power. Like if I were to slam on my brakes on any other bike, on the front brake, I'm going to do a front flip. Like it just wasn't doing what I needed to do. And so with all the issues that I had, right, the fuel being messed up, the shifting being really hard, the sputtering at low speed, the front brake not working, the strip bolts, the rust in the gas tank, I went on to the enthusiast group, and somebody said, hey, like what are some things that you guys actually like don't like about this bike? Like everybody seems that they love it so much, but what is an actual issues that you guys have? And I said, I'm glad you asked. And I just put all of that on there. I put every single thing on that Facebook post and just laid it out. And I said, this, all of this is wrong with this motorcycle of mine straight out of the crate. Which I was able to resolve most of it, like the chain, and I didn't get to resolve the front brake because even after bleeding, it still didn't work. And so the owner was like, he kind of messaged me, he's like, hey man, like, what is all this other stuff? And this is like I said, right after I went and rode it for the first time. So this is like me saying, hey, these are the issues that I found with this bike on my first ride, right? And I don't want to say that I'm super experienced and all this stuff, but I've been riding motorcycles since I was 18. And that gives me probably, what, 14 years of riding experience and 14 years of working on bikes. Granted, I am not a certified mechanic, right? So I shouldn't have bled the front brake without going through them first, right? Shouldn't have touched that. And there's some other things like I shouldn't have done, right? And so he says, you know what? You have all these issues. I want you to return the bike. I want you to send the bike to one of my dealerships. And his deal to me was like, hey, you obviously have a lot of issues with this bike. You obviously don't like this bike. So I'm willing to give you a refund. And the thing was, I was I didn't like that answer, right? Just like I didn't like him telling me that if my front brake wasn't tough enough, I could go aftermarket. Because the whole point of me doing this was to help him understand that I want to help him, right? The whole point. And I told him when I bought the bike that I'm going to give this thing a fair shakedown and then I'm going to post stuff on YouTube, right? Like I told the owner, right? Like I told him this. And he just said, you know what? I just want you to return it. And I had already made a couple reels that I had posted to the group, and he didn't like the fact that I was posting these reels. To be honest, he just didn't like it. And so I'm in a predicament now because I have the motorcycle that I wanted, the one that had the hype train on it, the one that everybody's looking forward to, right? But now the owner wants me to return the bike to him because I have issues. Instead of, you know, talking to me about possibly fixing the issues, he wants me to return it. And I didn't like that. The thing is, I to this day don't want to return the bike, right? I just want him to acknowledge that there may be some QC issues from the factory that they need to look out for. like crooked rear tires and fuel lines that are busted and front brakes that aren't tight. You know, super small stuff that will greatly help him achieve his goal of being a motorcycle manufacturer, right? And I understand 100% that he's an enthusiast just like me. He's a guy who had money that decided, hey, fuck it, I'm gonna make a motorcycle. And he saw the hole in the market that I did, right? Economical, low CC engines that people can afford. And I understand that word right there, afford, is super important to this whole thing, because in reality, I paid $3,650 for this motorcycle, which is very affordable for a motorcycle in 2024, right? Very affordable. But I also want to say, you can also get a used motorcycle for that price that you know may not have quality control issues. And I'm not saying that they do have quality control issues. I'm just telling you what I had received, right? And so we start going into the return process, and it took me almost a day. Me talking to my buddies, people that knew that I wanted this bike. My wife, she rode it, she loved it, and she agreed on the hard shifting, she agreed on the shitty brake, and so she didn't want to return it either. But when we had further conversations with the CEO, he said, well, if you have any further details, you need to bring this back to a certified Freedom dealer. And he goes, this is standard practice for all motorcycles. But by him saying that, he's saying that I need to take this bike either to California or to Oklahoma to a dealership that is certified by Freedom, right? That really put a bad taste in my mouth, because that's pretty much saying, if you have any issues, it's going to cost you a ton of money to get this thing fixed, because you're not by a Freedom dealership, right? So pretty much telling me, like, kind of like pushing me against the wall, saying, hey, like, no matter what you have now, if you have issues, then too bad, right? Like, you need to bring it to us. And I should have never touched a front brake, and I agree with that. Coming from his standpoint, I could have damaged a brake, and I totally understand that. Granted, I bleed hand brakes and all that stuff by myself, but I understand where he's coming from. And so I talked to my wife, and I talked to one of my buddies, really good guy, and he told me, hey man, see it like this. You're kind of already in a situation, right? He goes, so if you return the bike, you can recoup some money. You're gonna lose the $500 that you paid for shipping. And I was like, okay. He goes, but if you don't return the bike, it's on you. More than likely, he's not gonna help you fix any issues that you have, because you guys already have not the best relationship. And then, like I said, hopefully this is a bike that you want to put your time and your money into, just like all your other bikes. And that kind of hit me, right? It hit me to where I really understood that this is probably not a bike that I'm going to want to spend a ton of money on, because I've seen the build quality. On a picture of the VIN right here that I'm going to show you, I'm going to blur out the VIN, but I want you guys to see the welding spots on this frame, right? You can see that there's a dip at the top there where the frame isn't welded properly, in my opinion. I'm not a welder, but I've never seen a motorcycle with something like that. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, you know what, dude? You're right. You're absolutely fucking right. I should do the return. He goes, because maybe this isn't a bike that I'm going to love for the rest of my life, right? And you know me, I'm burning through bikes all the time. But the resale value on a Chinese-made American motorcycle is probably not too high anyway. So I said, okay, cool. I'll do the return. So I tell him, hey, we're in for the return. We want to do it. He said, okay, cool. Sounds like a great plan. But you need to sign an NDA. And I'm like, wait, excuse the fuck out of me? He's like, yeah, you need to sign an NDA if you want to return this motorcycle. Pretty much, he never gave me the NDA, but pretty much saying, like, I'm not allowed to say anything about this motorcycle online. And I pretty much told him, I can't tell you the exact verbiage because I don't have the text in front of me, but I said, no matter what option I take, I am going to reserve my right for my freedom of speech. I don't care if you take the bike back and you don't want me to sign an NDA, that I prefer that. But if you are telling me that I cannot post about this motorcycle online due to your reputation, then I will keep the motorcycle, no problem. I didn't want to give it back to you anyway, and that's pretty much that was that, right? I just told him, like, I'm going to reserve my right to freedom of speech, and I'm not selling out. That's how I see that. I'm not going to say, oh, all these issues I had with this motorcycle is okay, and I'm not going to tell anybody else who's looking for this motorcycle about it due to the fact that this guy wants me to, like, I need $3,000. I don't need the $3,000 from this bike back, right? I'm already losing $500 of that, which is quite a bit of the actual purchase price. So I told him, I was like, I don't need an NDA. I'm not signing an NDA. It's not happening. And he said, okay, have fun with your new bike. And then I talked to, there was more conversation happening and all this other stuff. I said, if anything, I just want this front brake fixed because that needs to be fixed. It's an actual safety issue is what I told him. And I haven't ridden the bike since. I haven't touched it. I made a couple reels about it. Didn't ever post them because of the threat of the NDA. And it's just real sad for me, right? Because, like, my whole point of this thing was to, like, Americans, it's fucking here. Like, the bike that we want is here. It is here. Like, we finally have something that all of the other countries I've ever been to, small CC motors that you can have fun with, still fuck around on, is here, right? And it's cheap. And I can't give a thorough review on how the bike actually performs because, like I said, it only has 7 miles on it. So I can't, at this point, give you guys a legitimate review. I can only tell you what has happened. And I told him that I wanted the front brake replaced and I'm not signing an NDA, and then that was pretty much the last of the conversation. He went on talking about, other stuff about brakes and how he, knows enough about brakes to know that my brake is fine. And yeah, it's been like a really heartbreaking weekend, right? Like telling me that he's gonna get an NDA, tell me to shut the fuck up, and he'll take his bike back. And I'm not willing to do that, right? Like, even the guy I bought it from, I told him, like, I was so excited for this bike, and now I'm just kind of up shit creek with the bike that the manufacturer thinks has no issues whatsoever, which is not truthful, right? No bike has no issues whatsoever. This is an MTL7, and it has soft suspension, and everybody knows it has soft suspension, and people talk about these things. So I'm kind of in the boat now to where I'm gonna wait for other people's reviews to come out, or I'll maybe post my reviews, and then I'll see if I'm right. If I get told by a bunch of other people that I'm just a knuckle-dragging dumbass, then okay, but I still stand by my views, right? Like, I'm kind of just in the boat to where whatever happens from here, happens from here. So, like I said, I haven't had enough time on the bike to give you an honest review if I would buy it again, but for right now, I'm not riding it until that front brake gets fixed, just to appease him. I could go find an aftermarket master cylinder and an aftermarket caliper because the calipers on there are no name. But if he wants to replace my front brake and try to actually right the situation, I'm going to allow him the full ability to do that. But yeah, it's kind of just one of those things that it's been a really, really up and down, crappy situation for me when all I wanted was to ride a shredder that was 200 cc's. I mean, I've never had a bike with an actual, like, color display. Right? So this was going to be something that I had never even experienced before. And the color display looks awesome. I even changed it to black when I was messing around with it before I ever rode it. So it has a lot of features. It has, like, coolant, or not coolant, but engine temperatures and a bunch of cool stuff on it. But it's just been heavy on my heart, to say the least. And I don't know. We'll see what everything comes of this. I haven't had any communication with him since Sunday. Yeah, I think it was Sunday or Monday. And so I'm just sitting. He told me that my return process was, the last day I could return it was Monday. So I'm at this point, I'm assuming the bike is mine and I would like to go ride it and like to put some miles on it. And, like, I can tell you right now that it fucking rides amazing at speed. For a small bike, it is super comfortable. It rides better than this at speed. It is super comfortable and it does a great job at doing that. So, like, there's not everything about this bike is bad. It looks fucking phenomenal, right? The dash looks fucking phenomenal. The stability it has is fucking phenomenal. But there was some issues, So, like, I don't want to say this whole bike is horrible because it's not, right? I can't even tell if the bike's horrible because I haven't ridden it. These are all things, like, these are all issues. Most of these are issues that I found on my first ride or before my first ride. So it's hard for me. I can't give a legitimate review. I can't tell you guys yes or no, buy this or don't buy this, but all I can do is share my experience with you guys. And I don't even know what I'm going to title this video. Probably the truth behind MY Freedom Fighter 200 EFI, because I right now I can't give you guys the content that I want to give you. I only have 7 miles on the bike. I would love to give you a 6-month, a year review, but at this point I can't even ride it because the front brake, in my opinion, is not safe to ride. Actually, you know what? I'll put a clip right here on what the front brake looked like at full front brake. When I say full front brake, I mean I was riding and I gave it full front brake. This MT-07 will come up on its nose on full front brake, and so will my Grom, so will my WR, so will my 919. So there's a little clip right here. Full brake. And that's where I'm at. I'm stuck in between a rock and a hard place with a bike that I want to love, and I don't know what to do. My point is not to discredit this guy. My point was to make content of a new shredder bike that came out to promote to everyone because I was so excited for it. I was so excited for it. I was the most excited for it. And now I just feel like I got my feet swept out from under me and pretty much like, hey, you don't love us, we don't love you. Any issues you have are now your issues. And he even said in the chat thread that by me wrenching on the bike, now the issues are my claims are my claims because I wrenched on the bike. And I'm like, the fuel tank isn't my fault. The front brake isn't my fault. The fuel line isn't my fault. The hard shifting isn't my fault. I didn't take the transmission apart. I was like, I don't understand how. He goes, well, those claims are your claims. I'm not saying they're valid or not, but they're your claims. And I'm like, yes, and they're my claims to help you. I'm trying to let you know that there's probably other people that have hard shifting. And sure enough, without ever me even posting anything about hard shifting, people are on the enthusiast group saying, hey, it is impossible to hit second. It is impossible to hit third. To shift this thing is horrendous. You know, so I'm just sitting here like, I don't really know. I don't know where the way forward is. I just want to make content about the fucking bike, whether it be good or bad or in between. Right? So I don't know, I'm just kind of stuck between two fucking rocks. I don't want to disparage him or his company, but I also want people to know that this is how my bike was received. I even have video of me trying to downshift while taking a turn, and I'm sitting there smashing the downshift to try to get it to work. So that's where I'm at, guys. This is my take on the Freedom Fighter right now. I don't have any more to give you. I can only tell you guys what I know and what I've experienced. And so that's pretty much all I've got. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully the situation gets better and I can make some more content about this thing. Adios, amigos.